Welcome everybody and special guests. You want to do acknowledgement to countries, Mayor Bailey?
Sure. Mid-Murray Council would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land, the Ngadjuri, Nawong, Nangaraku, Ngarkat, Ngarrindjeri and Paramount peoples of the Mid-Murray lands and waters. It's upon their ancestral lands and waters that the Mid-Murray Council meets and operates, and Council pays respect to elders past and present and their spiritual beliefs that are of continuing importance to those First Nations peoples of today. Council further acknowledges the contributions and important role that the First Nations peoples continue to play within the community, and we extend that respect to any peoples in attendance here today.
Thank you. So I think the Secretary's got details of all those that are present, including special guest Jeff, and you also know who the apologies are. Minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of February. Everyone's had a chance to have a look at them. Are we happy to have true and correct records accordingly? Are you happy for me to sign them as such? Good, because we already have. Declarations of interest, are there any? Deputations? Right. The Cambrai land fill business case. You want to do some any formal introductions before we get Jeff? David, do that. No.
Yes, through the chair, this is Mr. Jeff Webster from Waste Management Services, the author of the report before us.
So I suppose our plan, David, is maybe Jeff, you can just talk through it. It's in the papers, everyone's read it. So maybe the high level, and then I suppose answer any questions if you're okay with that, please, Chair.
Yep. Sure. And what I might do is I might give a brief background to myself as well, just a little bit. So yeah, Jeff Webster, I'm the Director of Waste Management Services, an overall engineering consultancy business. I'm involved with a wide range of different things. I've been helping with the flood cleanup works, a little bit of a review the other day with yourself. I'm the National President for the Waste Management Association for Australia, so get involved in a lot of stuff nationally. I've been involved in the waste game for probably about 30 years. I used to work for Cleanaway as the National General Manager for all post-collections businesses. So that's all the landfills, all the transfer stations, resource recovery facilities, etc. Chartered professional engineer by profession. But also the nice little niche that I have is I have an operational bent as well. So therefore I look at how things work. I try and integrate, engineering works, capital works, etc., with the way the operations happen. And so I get around a fair bit. Not that way, but I get around a fair bit around the country, working for councils, working for other larger consultants, etc., as a specialist in this sort of space. So this is what I do. I think part of this work originally started basically flowing on from the floods. The site itself is a relatively small site, handling 5,000 tonnes per annum in that sort of water. And then through the flood process, that volume increased significantly. I worked with Dave Cookie to look at how the site was operating, etc., charging the government, etc., for the additional materials coming in, as well as getting a little bit of extra support and whatnot. We looked at changing the profile of the site because you're just about to fill up. We looked at a number of different things, and I like to think that the financial performance of the site improved significantly during that period. And I suppose, identified for council the impacts of increased volumes with a site such as this. So the site has, landfills in general and other similar waste management facilities, they have a high fixed cost component. So basically, if you have a site that can handle 5,000 tonnes, that same gear, the same staff can all handle the extra tonnages without too many other inputs. And so that was what was really seen during the flood process. And so it's all marginal cost, basically, as soon as you start to get into it. And that's what we saw. And so in speaking about it with David and team, I said, well, look, what is the purpose of the site? How much longer do we go? We're looking at building a new cell. What do? We need to have some form of plan behind what it is that we're doing. And so therefore I was asked to develop a bit of a business plan that then went through, where we are, where we can go, and what we could potentially do with the site, what are some of the options, etc., with it. So I then went through the process. So the first thing I did is I built what's called a whole of life model. So what you try and do, you actually try and understand what's happening with the site. You want to understand when your capital spends are for each of the new cells that you build, for the capping works that you do, any of those big expenditures that are required. So that way you can work out a financial plan over time. What you then look to do is combine that with profit and loss analysis around different scenarios. So we just went through and said, that's about 5,000 tonnes. What do we need to do? How do we operate with that? And these are all the spreadsheets that you saw on the back of the report. Pretty small in the hard copy, but hopefully in the PDF, you could zoom in, you could have a look at it all to your heart's content. But we thought to try and understand what the staff numbers, what are the plant requirements, how do they operate, etc., all for these different volumes, etc. There's another little thing that happens for the site that is pretty unique, around the state and definitely around the country. That's the way the EPA levy works. And this is actually a major driver for what happens here and where the recommendation of the report has actually come out. You work on a population method, and that population method basically gives you a fixed cost for your EPA levy contributions on an annual basis. Most other instances, as soon as you go above 10,000 tonnes per annum, it goes to a tonnage rate. So at the moment, the country is at $78 a tonne. With where you are sitting currently, it's, I can't remember the exact number, it's $58 or in that order. But then if you actually go up to 10,000 tonnes, it actually drops right down further. It goes down to about $28 a tonne. So it's actually one of those little economic drivers. And this is a risk. This is something that you need to be aware of with the thinking going forward. The EPA could change this approach because it changes how some of the economics work. But basically it means that if you can go anywhere from 0 to 9,999, you have that fixed cost. And so therefore the amount that you can charge, that keeps going up and up. But the way you cover the EPA levy just basically stays the same. So again, it means that you as an operating facility, a high level of fixed costs that gets spread over a certain number of tonnes. So we went through then and looked at,
Jeff, can I just ask a question? Is there any thinking from the EPA that you've heard that they may be looking to consider or reconsider that method?
No, I have not. And feel free to ask questions as we're going through any of this. This is 30 years worth of experience stuff coming through. So I don't expect you all to get it just up to one report and whatnot. So, and to be fair, I do this with a lot of councils, as I mentioned before, around the country. You guys are not unique in any way, shape, or form you're thinking. And in actual fact, I think that you as a site are much better prepared than a number of sites that I've seen, larger sites, all sorts of stuff. I've seen sites that have no provisioning for post-closure. They've got no idea where their approvals sit. They've got no idea about anything, and they just throw stuff in the ground. No lining systems, no. So you're not that bad in weak sites. It's quite good. Where did I get to? So we looked at then the PIPs, we combined it all together and said, okay, these are the different scenarios that can actually then play out. But actually stop that component and start to go away from the financials into something a little bit more, I suppose, subjective and whatnot. Then start to look at, what's happening around you. So we need to actually have a look, a bit of a competitor analysis, looking at where you sit in the marketplace. What can you potentially do? What could you not? Because you aren't going to be able to attract big tons out here. It's just as simple as that. I mean, you could try, but you aren't going to then compete, I would have said, with the big guys. You've got 4 major landfills that are floating around with Norma, Adelaide Hills, Dublin and Inkerman. So you've got 4 big sites. Inkerman's handling over 300,000 tonnes per annum. Norma's 250, sorry, not Norma, Dublin's 250. And we'll go by memory here with these numbers, so I won't out slightly, just give me a little leeway there. And Norma's sitting about 70,000 tonne. Adelaide Hills is 67,000 as well. So they're big volumes. And so one of the opportunities for you is that Norma is going to shut soon. And so they're going to be shutting 2027 in that sort of time frame. And that's a legislative time frame that they have to close by. And so those tonnages will free up. So what happens is every site has its own little, what I call a capture zone. So if you have a dot on a page, which is what I provided in the report, you then actually draw a little circle around it. And that's where trucking distances, etc., come into it. And this is, thank you, one of the really important parts. You've got to look at a combination, not just when you gate fee and trying to put it in, but how you're actually getting the material to come to the site. So, when looking at those different factors that are driving it, it actually makes a little bit of sense. You've got Norma closing, you've got you guys sitting in a nice little position between the Riverland, the Barossa and all the other major facilities. I would have thought that you could quite legitimately pilfer a few tons here and there without too many problems. And so I must admit, I actually had a bit of a chat to one of the guys. I didn't actually say what I was doing or anything like that. I had a chat to the guys from Solo, and they were saying, "Oh, we had Barossa tons. They're going to be coming out. You could do something there, or you could move these." And so, I've put a few feelers out in the marketplace to talk about that sort of potential opportunity. Another key factor that comes into all this is your approvals for the site. So when we went through and started receiving all the waste down the site, we were bringing a lot of material in quite rapidly, double your previous volumes. And speaking to the guys on site, you could see that you were about to close. In fact, you would probably be closed now if we didn't go through and get a height extension for that site. So previously, there wasn't really a lot of guidance as to what was going to happen. So we sort of made an executive decision within the waste team and whatnot with a bit of support that you then start to make a bit of a shape. You create a mound over the side and enable yourself to do a little bit of profile work, etc. And then increase the volume, basically double the volume of that site by doing that work. And again, when you think about how we talk about the whole of life model, so again, we have those fixed costs for your lining system, for your cap. You might have spread them over, 100,000 cubic meters of airspace. Well, effectively, we just doubled that. So again, what we've tried to do is get those efficiencies in the airspace, etc. We were then talking about where we're going. Actually, we discovered something after this report was written. And something I think that you guys need to be aware of when it comes to things such as risk, etc. So the site, you've got an area been approved about 160 by 160 square meters. Currently, you've got and built a landfill cell that's sitting about 120 by 120 square meters. When we're doing this report, and again, this work we've got and done, just exploring, investigating further. You built a cell that's 120 by about 120, which means you've got a band around the outside of about 30 to 40 meters going down your eastern and your southern side. Only that cell itself isn't actually constructed in the area that you were approved to actually put it into. For some reason, it's been built a little bit further to the north. Don't know why. It's what it is. And so currently you have the ability under your current approvals to probably just do that extra little bands around the east and the south, and that's probably it. And so the airspace that you have available through the construction of that is less than what we made the original assumption of. When we were doing the original work, we understood that there were 4 cells, which were basically the same as the existing cell that you've got. And there have been some designs that have already been done for stage 2, which line up with that line of thinking as well. So somewhere through the process, there's been a disconnect between what your actual approvals are and what your planning has actually been. So that's something that this group needs to be aware of, council needs to be aware of. We've had some discussions internally with council. We've spoken about the need to get development approvals in place. We've spoken to some planners, and what the thinking is that it shouldn't actually be that hard, that it's it's an approved activity on the site. You've actually got really great conditions with clays, with lack of groundwater, all sorts of other environmental impacts, etc. So it's actually quite, it seems not assuring, but something that's quite positive that should be able to get through. So that's not in this report, so I apologise. That was something we found later on. And so there's a bit of a process that then needs to, I suppose, go on in how you can actually pursue this as an option. So, sorry, just getting back to the report. So sorry for that little segue there. But coming to the report. So basically what we've got identified is the site is good. The site itself economically and financially should work really quite well in doing it. The tons that you have are available potentially out in the marketplace without too many issues. A few challenges, you have to work your relationships, etc. But council deals are always a little bit easier than put up enterprise to council, etc. And so that's where we then talk about the that target capture area and how we can try and work that.
Sorry to interrupt. So market.
Yep.
So there's contracted amount. So a contractor is taking it to somewhere.
Correct.
And then there's ability to attract extra tonnage through things that aren't committed.
So you've got 2 different waste streams effectively that you'd be looking at. One is the MSW stream. So that's the stuff that's generated by councils. Generally, they will go out for a tender and they will say who wants to dispose or receive our ton moving forward. So just say Barossa, for example, they might have gone out for a tender. Inkerman, the guys from Cleanaway, the guys from IWS and Normal would have all gone for that. And so therefore they'll put forward a price. They have the collection group that's in the middle, which is Solo in this instance. And they then say, okay, we'll do it next rate, whatever it might be, and then you secure those tons. At the same time, you have commercial industrial tons that will be floating around in the area. So that will be businesses or whoever it might be. They'll go around. They'll in the front. So if I say front lift, that's generally a commercial industrial type vehicle and waste. And then side lift is your residential collections. So you've got the 2 different waste streams that are potentially available. And so C&I you could generally get just through doing a deal with the private enterprise. The council tons, that'd be part of a tender generally or through negotiation or whatever it might be.
And say those Barossa, they contracted for a period of time.
Correct.
So there might be 12 months to, what is it normal?
3 years,
3
5 years, and that sort of time frame.
Yeah.
So it depends what's happening, you know, because there's that sort of flux at the moment, I suppose, when it comes to energy from waste. So this, in the background, you would have read that, or would have seen that, you know, there is a push to move away from disposal of waste to landfill. The EPA, the state government, they have policies, etc., to try and reduce volumes of waste to landfill. At the moment, we're sort of plateaued as a state, and it's actually really interesting. We as a state, we're probably one of the best in the country at diversion of waste from landfill. What is actually happening is the volumes of waste are staying the same that are going to landfill, but the amount of diversion that is occurring is continuing to increase. So if I just did a rough graph, yeah, you know, total waste generation is continuing to go like that. Then what happens though is you've actually got a straight line with the amount of waste going to landfill, and so that gap in between is that increase of diversion. So we're doing really well at covering all the increasing waste, but it's actually started to plateau, if that makes sense. So that diversion amount is actually not increasing as fast as the total waste, and so we're actually now starting to get a slight increase in the amount of waste to landfill. So do I think that waste to landfill will disappear over the next 2-3 years? No, I don't. You've got the likes of Greenhill Energy who are pushing for an energy to waste plant. Are you all aware of that one? Yep, Talabin. Yep, so they're pushing quite hard at the moment. You've had other people who've been looking at energy from waste in South Australia for quite some time, but haven't been able to make it stack up. The reason for that is generally because they are looking at big units. Like they're trying to get 400,000 tonnes per annum or so to actually get a big mass burning incinerator going. What we see, or the industry generally sees as being a more likely scenario, is that you'll get multiple little energy from waste plants to get up and going. But even then, when I say little, we're talking 100,000 tonnes, etc. So it's hard for them to get the volume to actually drive that. But that is something that we're seeing. And as the scale of some of these energy from waste plants decreases, they become more viable for the South Australian market. Because we just don't have the same volume. You know, Sydney's got 7-8 million tonnes per annum going to landfill. You've got a site in Melbourne, MRL, that's taking 2 million tonnes per annum. You know, these are serious tonnages that we're talking about. So
is there a risk that, or an opportunity that the state government might impose like a waste to energy type of solution, or is that not?
I don't know. I don't think they will. I'm not aware of anyone who's done that.
Yeah.
The furthest that they've gone is New South Wales, which has put in place precincts to try and encourage energy from waste.
Yeah.
They put that in place probably about 3 years ago. They don't have anything yet. Even if you start tomorrow, so Norma is also looking at energy from waste plant at the moment. They are minimum 5 years away from getting up and going. Right, so nothing happens in the waste space really fast. You know, the building of a new, so if you want to start a new landfill tomorrow, 5 to 10 years. If you want to get an energy from waste plant, 5 to 10 years. If you want to build a material recovery facility, probably 3 years, 3 to 5 years. By the time you go through your building approval processes, and I hate to say this, but also if you're a council, your tendering processes and your probity and all the other bits and pieces, it's very different. If I'm a private enterprise and I like someone's gear, I'll just go to them, I'll do a deal with them. Can't do that in council, obviously. We'll add 6 months to your process. So I helped build the Central Adelaide Waste Resources Authority MERV. So you know, I've got a pretty idea, and I've done other MERVs throughout the place, other transfer stations. So this is what I do. So the timeframes, nothing's going to happen in the next 2-3 years. Not a chance. Even with Greenhill Energy, you know, what are they going to be able to do? They still have done planning approvals. They haven't built anything. They haven't done anything really. They've started talking about it, and I think there's some really good concepts there. I like some of the things they're talking about, but are they going to start up tomorrow? No, it's not that. So you know, I think you could talk about landfill bans. Government's gone and done that type of work before when they've banned minor items. But as the Waste Management Association, or a different hat on for a moment, one of the things that we push quite hard is you can't go and just do bans without having solutions in place. So if they said, oh, well, we're going to ban all material going to landfill, that's fine. Where's it going to go? And so we try and get a bit of a balance between where the government would like to be and some of the methods that they might like to try and apply. So I think some of the broader risks are that they would jack up the levies. That's probably more of a reality, they could double them overnight, really. The Treasury comes through the next budget, and no one knows. We're very poor in South Australia in informing our community. I'm speaking on behalf of the government here. They're very poor, I think, in communicating what's going to happen with the waste levies. You know, again, as the association, we'd like to see that money coming back into industry, trying to promote recycling, diversion, all sorts of other initiatives, education, etc. But, you know, it doesn't happen. It goes into general revenue.
They've
Have you
also
seen,
got cost shifting as well.
yeah,
They did that a
have you
couple of
seen
years ago.
the contracts? So is that written into those 3 to 5 year contracts for the,
Waste levy.
yeah.
So what happens is they generally have a base number, and then they'll have a separate number that says whatever the levy is. And so, again, you actually have an advantage out here because you're half the levy rate. So if the levy rate goes up $10 in town, you're only going up $5 out here. So again, this is one of the risks that we play, though. You've got to be aware that if the EPA thinks you're just trying to take advantage of the system effectively, they could change the rules on you. So that is a risk that we need to be aware of. The worst case scenario, though, is that you keep ticking along and do your own tons. So it's not a massive risk to take you away from where you are now, but it just means that, you know, trying to attract more tons in or trying to get some big advantage doesn't work. Similarly, what they try and do with the waste levy is they'll charge the levy amount based on where the material comes from. So if you were trying to attract in metro tons, they'll charge you the metro rate. So you've got to be aware that you can't just open up your doors and expect to pay half the levy rate. Nice, but it doesn't work that way. So the likes of Ingham and Dublin, they're both well and truly outside of the metro area, but because all the tons are coming from the metro areas, they get charged at the metro rate. So yeah, so from that, basically, what we identified, is that under current conditions, you're probably losing money on the side. And this is because, okay, there's a lot of nodding over there, so yeah, I was pretty sure you were. And look, I must admit, when the site first got approved, I wondered how you're doing it. Because for the tonnages, etc., that you're doing, there's no way to justify it. But if you go through the modelling, etc., then you can see that 10,000 tonne, and again, assume it's 9,999, then you're actually making some good money because you don't need one extra staff member, or was it? Half an extra staff member. So it's not as if you actually got to do a whole more to take all that extra material in. And another really interesting thing that you'll see there is the way that at 25,000 tonnes, the number starts to actually go down. And that's because that's where you see one of those step changes I was talking about before. At that point in time, we need to buy a little bit more gear, and we've got the extra staff member. So that you can see how that flow, that impacts on the overall cost. That's why I thought that little graph, little curve, was a nice, simple way to demonstrate how some of those cost curves kicked in. So with that, it then meant that it said that the ultimate spot really for you was sitting around that 10,000 tonne. I mean, you could try and go for 30,000. I didn't take the model up to that level, but you know, 30,000, 40,000, you start to get better numbers. But are you realistically going to get those sorts of volumes and those tonnages? You know, and then all of a sudden, you know, you start to play a slightly different game. So I thought that this was just a nice, I don't say cunning, but just a nice little spot to sit. You stay under the radar, you bring a few tons in, you actually get it up to the level. And I think Dave, you've spoken before that you were taking extra tons previously from another location. Spoke to the EPA, they weren't too concerned about it at the time. You know, the EPA, they don't generally care about the financials. Their remit is around making sure that people are following the rules and make sure there aren't negative environmental impacts, etc. So if you can work out something which works a little bit better, generally they're not too upset by it. And as long as you don't go around, you know, rubbing people's noses in it and saying, no, that's what we do, then things seem to work out reasonably well from that perspective. So look, that's probably a high level summary. I'm not going to go through every little bit. I hadn't planned to. I can if you want. I hadn't planned to, you know, go through it word for word and just read it out. I just wanted to run through those key factors, I suppose, that were key determinants in the thinking process. Obviously, we've been discussing a lot of this with council staff on the way through, getting their input. Another key one actually worthwhile talking about is actually closure of the site and where does that put you? And Dave was actually one of the key components actually pushing that as the option. For me, I thought about it as, well, you know, the different options, et cetera. I didn't even think about closing it. They said, look, we're really going to consider that as part of this process. I thought it was a really valid point. And so, you know, we looked at that, and one of the key risks that you have there is that one, first of all, you're going to start trucking a whole lot of stuff fair distance away. But you've still got a lot of costs with the site. You still have to close it. You then post-closure, all these other elements that need to come into it. And when you start to do net present values associated with that, bringing those costs forward actually has a big impact, especially if, you know, you haven't been making money, you haven't been able to build up stores, etc. One of the misconceptions that a lot of councils have, and I'm not saying you guys do, is that they say, oh, look, we've got a landfill, but we don't have to worry about provisioning because, you know, we're a council, we're guaranteed revenue with our ratepayers, etc., etc. But then what happens is site closes somewhere, they've got to foot a bill of, you know, $1 million, $2 million, and they go, where are we going to get that money from? You know, we can't afford it to grab it, to get loans, to do this, to do that. By having the money aside, by provisioning properly for it, that is something that is seen as, you know, best practice in waste management, and accounting. So I'm doing a lot of stuff up in Darwin, New South Wales, Victoria, you know, and I did it all for the South Australian business when I was running things there. We made sure that we had the provisions in place. And for any of the councils that I do it for, you know, the accountants will be saying, well, what is your provisioning now? They used not to even ask about it, but now they do. I don't know if you get lined up by the auditors, etc. But again, it's a really fundamental thing that they have. It's nodding, so yes. And so, you know, having that there, making sure that that number is right. This is why the whole of life model is a really important process to go through. And we've actually done some little nifty things there. So we can actually say, if we close it tomorrow, what does that mean? So the numbers all change, etc. If you have 4 cells, what does it mean? So we can actually adapt the model pretty readily to work out what sort of impact it has. So yeah, so the actual benefit of closing early, there isn't really one, in my opinion. You know, I think you'd use the site to its fullness, even if you did the little stuff around the outside, at least you do that, but then try and move it into a profit-making position rather than, you know, going slow and horrible death type of thing.
What if you, because we've got, is it one cell in operation at the moment and another one almost ready to go, is it?
No.
Planned for, but
It's planned for.
We're working through the designs and, you know,
So,
we've got
so
approved.
the
Yeah.
big issue that you have there is you actually don't have the development authorization to expand into that cell.
Into the second cell.
Correct.
Yeah.
You haven't built it, you haven't done anything yet.
Yeah.
You design one exactly the same as the current cell.
Yeah.
But in going through the planning, so we actually started to do some of the next steps of the recommendation. And when we did that, we said, well, hang on a tick, you don't have another cell that you can do, which is 130 by 130. You've got another little area which is 30 meters wide on one side. And then you've got 30 meters wide, which is down the bottom. And that's all that you've got. I don't know why. Apparently the original concept was to do 4 cells all the same. At some point, there was a decision made to go larger than that. And that then left over these little bits around the outside. And that's where you sit.
So if we stuck to the one cell, how much life, given you increased to the 10,000?
Well, we would have to change the profiles because again, there was the assumption done when we did the original change the profile that we actually had other cells to back into. And so we got another 70,000 cubic meters or 80,000 cubic meters, whatever it was. But I'd probably have to change that and flatten it down somewhat because one side, I've got a nice slope about 1 in 5. The other side I've got really steep because of my anticipation. So I was then going to fill against this side over here and I could flatten it out later on. I'd actually have to bring all that back down. So I'd lose, I don't know, a third, maybe. I don't know the exact number.
So the life is what?
You
6
might get
years,
5 years.
5-6 years?
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
But look, if we've got the extra little bits around the outside, that might keep you at 8 to 10 years.
Plenty of time to get approvals. Work
Yeah.
out further for next feasibility.
Yeah.
So page 85, that's the life, landfill life, so they're incorrect now.
Yeah.
Mm. So it says 2072 with
Yeah.
no change and then 2048.
Correct. That's based on the bigger footprints,
Yeah.
etc.
So
Correct.
we can just get them updated. Jeff, so what's the sweet spot for the gate fees? at a certain rate, and we obviously want to track things. I'm not asking for specifics, but there's, what I'm hearing from you is there is potential market.
Correct.
We want to get to 9,500-ish.
Yep.
As our sweet spot, that can generate that. What are we charging at the moment, Dave?
You're 210, 210 including EPA levy.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of checking around.
Yeah.
And that's how I came up with the numbers. So that I think I had about 130 in that sort of range. You'd be working around that number.
On page 91, you've got your recommendations. Is there anything further you want to talk to us about apart from that which you have already?
Not really, except as I said, the key recommendation now would actually be to get approval for the additional cells to basically take a step back to then you'd want to actually just look at how you're going to develop that site in a bit more rigor. Again, it was only suggested 4 cells, and that was it. I wouldn't do that moving forward. You'd be looking at, okay, where's our stormwater, where's our leachate? Do we want 6 cells? Why stop at 4? I don't know. You know, or how to try and do that. I think the 4 cells is enough from a lifespan, 2072. That's a long way away at this point.
No, those will be here, that's for sure. Yeah.
So, Jeff, we have the licenses for the growth, but we don't have the development approvals for the
Correct.
additional cells.
Correct.
And who's the authority for that? State?
State
Yeah.
government. Well, no. It could actually be you.
Well, that's why I asked the question, so.
Yeah. So it could actually well be you to actually sign off on your own development.
Yeah.
So there are processes. So again, we've spoken to master plan as part of that process. They have a guy in there who does a lot of work in the landfill space, and I like him. In that I haven't dealt with him before, but when we had the discussion and I went through, he said, look, this is fine. These are the things we need to do. Rattle off a whole lot of bits and pieces. And then from some other colleagues, I know he's been doing a lot of work with the Southern Waste facility down at Bella Creek, a lot of work up at Dublin, etc. He's the sort of guy that you go to. And so he's well aware of the processes associated with these sorts of fixings. We'll just fix it.
So really, I mean, you've got a business plan, but you need a master plan and a project plan to work out what comes first and then what processes are going to take time.
Correct. So the number one, or the very first recommendation there is actually now, well, we've sort of done that review, and then that is with 1A, which is get the actual planning approvals up to speed. So there's no point going out and chasing all these additional bits and pieces until you have that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that brief presentation. Anybody got any questions or observations? Simone?
Through the chair. Notice on page 77 with the competitor analysis that they're all managed by someone other than council.
Norma is managed by council.
Yeah.
Adelaide Hills is managed by council.
Oh, okay.
Then you've got the 2
Oh, yeah,
private ones
integrated
within Community
Cleanaway.
Cleanaway.
Yeah.
And then Dublin with IWS.
My question is probably more for Ben and Dave, is do we have the capability, expertise? I know that it's only got a 0.5 extra staff to get there, which was not for managing. Are we able to do that within our current resources?
We would need to consider that, and also, it's about relationships and, going out to market and trying to find the extra tonnage.
Yeah.
So I think
Master plan.
I think that needs to be added.
we need to consider that. I think that's the information how you operationalize it. There's the steps to make sure you're able to get it delivered, and grow.
Yeah, or if there's an opportunity to contract it out, if we can still benefit from that, I guess we should look into that.
I wouldn't contract out this as an operation, just so you know. It's too small.
It's just we have limited resources and expertise and we don't.
Yeah, but its profitability could be such that you can engage or employ and make money out of it.
Yeah.
Correct, that's right. And for me, you're talking about half an extra person. You going to.
That wasn't for managing, that was for.
No, this is, you could run that side. Sorry, what I've also allowed for in the pricing model is then extra consultants fees. I.e. you get someone like me to assist and provide high level guidance, etc. And you keep the rest of the structure effectively the same. Going to 5,000 to 10,000 is nothing. Right? You wouldn't even have to, it sounds like a lot, but if I consider that one curbside vehicle has 8 tons in it, and then if I do that for 5 days a week, it's 40 ton. Multiply that out by my 50 weeks a year, or 52, let's say 50, there's 2,000. It's one extra truck a day. Not actually that hard. So for the 5, I need 2 trucks. It's not a lot. And if I then do it as a semi-trailer walking floor or something like that, which you wouldn't do, they take 25 ton pop. So that's 3 trucks. So you wouldn't even have 1 extra truck a day. So it sounds like a little bit more, but if we do it right, then you might get, 2 trucks a day coming from the Barossa with a curbside side lift. You wouldn't even notice it.
And what do we do when we were doing the Barossa? How much extra?
It's about 2,500 ton, I think it was coming through the gate at the time.
Yeah.
And it was actually improving our position financially.
I think, Clive, you just had one other question around the additional expense for the cell development.
Oh, that was just in the cash flow. We had approximately $1,000 million or $1 million for the whole, and then there was the Leachite dam, which was nearly about the same amount of money.
Yep.
Yeah. So I suppose just to be aware that that has an impact into long-term financial plan. But once you get approval, the building of that. We don't actually have to have that next cell ready enough, going. We can actually say that Leachite can be built out over 5 years or 6 years.
So Income Site, for example, we have the whole site approved. And there are 26 cells or stages as part of that, with 4 cells in each stage. By the time I left, we'd done 3 of them, 4 of them. Right. So you're just working your way through it. That's the big risk there that I think you're talking about then is if you don't start the development authorized or development approved works within a certain time frame, they can be taken away. We can say we've already started, we don't the whole, and so that would be sufficient.
We use for rubble anyway.
Yes.
Correct, that's right. Yeah, that's one of the advantages. You can guys create the void. You actually have the material on site for picking up, the shoulder. There are lots of things there that mean that you wouldn't have to use something from a planning approval.
And Clive, from a financing perspective, we've got the $1 million in funding to assist with the development of cell 2. And then if there's another $1 million that we need to budget, we can budget that for over a period of time, knowing that it might be 5-8 years away.
Well, in 2029-30, I've got another $1.1 million there. So basically, because we've got additional capacity, I was always planning for another cell to be constructed. So basically, that would actually do the second cell, and that would complete it, and that timing would probably just be about right.
It's not too dissimilar to the numbers that I reckon I put together.
And
So
you make it
you've got to
profitable,
count,
you make it profitable to be to some extent.
Oh, that's right. Self-funding it. Yeah.
Well, as the report mentioned, around I think it's $13 or something for that future deconstruction or whatever the word is.
For the post-closure period.
Yeah, post-closure period, so you're incorporating that in out of the additional tonnage as well.
So I think I'm just checking it now. I brought those numbers forward because there was a bit of a push that we build sooner rather than later to tie into the funding availability. So I actually had that being done next year because you had everything done. But from an airspace perspective, you don't need to do it for 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
But one of the key things you do, just think where you build the airspace well in advance when you actually need it, because things happen during construction, always problems, and then you have blowouts, and all of a sudden you run out of airspace, and then what do?
Yeah.
You have to pick up materials, you double handle it, make piles, it's problems, big problems.
Okay, any other high-level questions at this stage? All right, thank you very much for your
Thanks, Jeff.
detail.
Appreciate that.
Pleasure.
You're done too, aren't you? You done or you got another update?
Obviously, if there are any further questions, Dave can follow up. I can point out if you need.
Thank you.
But the good thing is that I did all that from memory.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Right, well, we'll go back to page 4. There are 3 recommendations. Firstly, the report be received. Secondly, that we recommend to council that the plan be received. And thirdly, that the plan be used to guide the future operations of the site. I also wouldn't mind somehow that we get confirmation that those recommendations form part of the master plan. And I would suggest that this committee probably needs to keep a bit of a watchful eye on it. I think from the day that Jeff Hawke told me you were doing it, there wasn't any real proper monitoring of how it was performing until recently. So I think we need to keep an eye on it for two reasons. One, because it is a significant cost, but more importantly, it could be a significant revenue generator offset
Mhm.
relevance.
Only thing that I worry about is it's already out of date, you know.
I think we need to get updated.
So we put that in there, but get it updated, so we don't want to use that as a plan if it's out of date.
All right, well,
Maybe just in 3, if we put, the use guide subject to,
The final,
yeah,
final adjustments which were mentioned during the meeting.
Yeah.
All the regions.
I'm sure you and I can handle it when the minutes come in. All right, I've put the recommendation into a second. Thank you, Peter. Is there any discussion?
No, just ask one question. I was interested going through the report it's done 2 or 3 years ago now, I think, about the 10 local
transfer station.
transfer stations, yeah. That's obviously costing a lot of money to run that. And we're looking at Canberra now, which is good, and I'm going to turn that around. But what about the transfer station issue? Is that going to be?
Yeah, so there's a review in July, I think, this year. So it was meant to be implemented, I forget the timeframes now, but it was delayed because of the flood. So I think the review was meant to be done at the start of this year, was it? And it's been pushed out by 6 months. So a review of the rationalisation will be undertaken and further consideration will be given to that.
Right, yeah.
We'll say that quite controversial when we rationalised it and reduced hours around.
Yeah.
And will no doubt be controversial if we make any changes, but we have 10
Yeah,
transfer stations. I think Simone, you'll be able to, Brossa, or no.
That Ross has one at Springton, that's it,
Yeah,
right
yeah.
at one end.
10 was an outlier in the
Yeah, it's
statistics.
ridiculous.
Yeah, so we have a large area and we over service and, the community expect that as
Last
well.
time we had a stats update, I think one had been used 3 times in 2 or 3
Yeah,
months, so.
I was, just possible that we should pick it up from people's houses rather than get them to bring it to a,
That's
you know,
what
it needs
You
to
do
be
the
That's
thing,
what we're doing.
you do that
Yeah.
now.
When we started picking up, we didn't close transfer stations down, that's the problem.
It's a pretty sensitive issue.
It certainly is, gets people very.
But people are becoming more and more aware this year that we're doing a sustainability review of everything.
Yeah,
So the people out there we're talking to them, they're starting to understand that more the council's position.
Yeah.
The more we talk to them, and so even though they might not like some of the stuff that we have to look at, and they might panic a little bit, they do know we'll come and talk to them about it.
so they see it in the context of the
Number
actual
of-
cost.
Oh, that's right.
Then, just think of it in terms of, well, getting it done for free.
Self-interest always works.
The other thing is, I think of the stats we got, 20% of them are paying, the other is recycling and stuff, so if we can, and in our strategic plan, it talks about getting a recycling to everyone, so if we can do that, maybe that's the time.
Yeah.
Close the transfer station.
So the recommendation's been put and seconded. There's no objections. All those in favour? Thank you.
Through the chair, David. Heather, we're only on item 1, about to go on item 2, and you are item 13, I think.
Yeah,
So-
I just wanted to make a little comment in regard to the waste transfer. Local government and local government risk services are providing a program that we will start in July, giving a massive risk profile for the whole region's waste management activities. And we're first off the rank in July as well. So that'll go in with the review of all our transfer stations. So we'll be looking at it from a risk and an insurance perspective as well.
Sorry, I thought you'd just come online, and I was going to say you can come back in half an hour. You're more than welcome to stay there.
No, I only popped in because I wanted to make a comment. That's all. I'll turn my camera off. I'm still here listening.
Okay, thank you. 7.2. John.
Okay, thank you, David. Through the chair, just like to highlight the reduction in borrowings at June 30 following this budget review. Even though we've pushed half of the 2 million into next year, it's still a pretty impressive savings. Operating income's up by 830,000 and expenses are down by 151. There's a couple of grants in there that boost the income and reduce the savings that we've made on the expenses. So it's I'm pretty happy with the changes and I recommend it to you.
I was very happy too, John.
Oh.
No, you. But I'm happy.
Given we've all had a chance to read it and consider it, are there any questions?
I think, Chair, the only comment I'll make is, we've still got the, previous, grant, acquittal to be done for the floods and the next claim done, so that'll make some changes, but we're working through that process. I'm sure Treasury will want to make sure we do it by the end of the financial year, so,
We've got 6 weeks.
yeah.
All right, well, on that basis, I'll put the recommendations that the report be received, that this committee recommends those revisions or changes to council for adoption and recommend to council the budget be amended to reflect the variances. Thank you. Second, Simone. Any further discussion?
If I could just make a comment on the work that's gone in, just to acknowledge the work that's gone into this by the senior management team. I know it's been a phenomenal amount of work, and I'd like to thank you for that and acknowledge the difference you're making. Thank you.
Continue to make. Well done.
Okay.
All those in favour? Thank you. Right. 7.3, long-term financial plan, page 137. Bunch of page numbers. Yes.
Okay, just for the chair, I'll just give some highlights of the report. Obviously, long-term financial plans gives future direction of council sustainability, and it's based around the strategic plan of the council. It's been conservatively prepared. We haven't got any earthy sustainability levy placed against there. Everything has been budgeted for, but as more savings are identified and being realised, they will actually still be put into the future budget and the long-term financial plan. For example, with the LED street lights, we've got funding to do that, so we're actually changing all the street lights to LED. We're expecting that that'll be a $20,000 to $30,000 per annum savings. That hasn't been built into that. We actually hasn't got the contractors to commit. So once those are realised, we'll actually put those in the future budgets. As Ben has said before, council received $3.665 million in flood response, with basically an advance payment. We're going through the last claim for the Department of Treasury and Finance, and also finalising various insurance claims that Heather has been involved with. The long-term financial plan aims to return the operating surplus in 2026-27, which is 2 years earlier. This plan has been based on the previous principle of having CPI plus a 2% sustainability, and then also looking at in past of where CPI has been underestimated. So that's how the calculation has been formed. So the basically net financial liabilities are fairly well from 53% next year, and $15 million borrowing, which has been reduced continually each year when we do a new long-term financial plan, to approximately about $3.9 million at the end of 10 years. So yeah, that can only be achieved by having a lot of discretionary expenses being removed and delaying some expenditure of our building renewals to the back end of the long-term financial plan after when we become sustainable. There is a reasonable amount, about $260,000 a year, just to cover emergencies, and also the balance seal of sealing Maryland's road between Morgan and Blanchetown has been put in for the last 3 years. Probably when I did the calculation, it looked like the catch-up would be a 12.48% increase, in addition to what we estimate CPI would be, plus the 2% sustainability, which would bring up to the total increase, which that would be acceptable. So I modelled on having 2 years of basically 8.54 for existing properties, and that's what this is based on. As before, it brings the surplus 2 years earlier. we can spend more money on the building renewals, and we can actually drop out the 2% sustainability in the last 5 years of the long-term financial plan. So there is ups and downs in this model, and as I've just stated, there, considerable increase in general rates between 2024, 25 and 25, 26. So that's the logic that's been gone through for long-term financial plan. There is a mention about a alternative model, and that was engineered basically the opposite way, where previously we always said that we were looking at a surplus in 2028, 29. So what I did was a calculation to say, what would I have to increase rates to keep that original goal of that year? And the alternative model would require a total increase of 3.1% of estimated CPI, 2% sustainability plus only a 2.19% catch up would be a increase of 7.29% for existing property plus a little bit of growth. So that they are the two two models. I actually had to do some operations with that alternative model. The 2% sustainability, instead of being dropped off for 5 years, in the end of the plan, it only gets dropped off for 2. I had to pull back on some of the building renewals that had been pushed back also into that. So that you can see the two models, which are there's a new 1-page summary they've made. Hopefully people can follow those. That's hopefully a little bit easier than looking at multiple pages for the long-term financial plan. So that's what's been recommended for. So obviously the rate increase of 8.54 for existing properties plus new development of 1.5% has been developed our long-term financial plan, and also the annual business plan at this stage.
Sure, observation, how are you going to sell 8.54, given problems that you've had in the past, albeit that other councils are, Burns are up to 14%. The other thing I think you need to think about in the community consultation process is in public relations, because I hear on a regular basis that this council broke and it's spending money on $1,000 a head black tie dinners celebrating whatever. I keep telling these people that they are fairyland, and if they were serious, they ought to stop talking about it and attend a council meeting or go online when there's a function like this and actually see what's going on. So I think it will be very important that you stress that, we are not alone as a council in terms of what the rate increases are, but more importantly, our debt is not 20 million. Sure, it might be 15 million, but we have a plan that in the not too distant future, it will be 0. And the other thing I've always said to these negative Nancy's is that just let me know over the last 10 years what we shouldn't have done as an infrastructure development and therefore not borrow the money, and what you would have been had to go without, which roads, which, facilities. So I think you need to reinforce that without being aggressive about it, just to sort of try and inject some logic and truth into the matter, because the negative Nancy's out there are starting to give me the irrits.
I had to tell a local MP the other day, made a speech to a room to say we're going insolvent. We're not insolvent, we've got plans, but Councillor Tochek and I did have a chat about our messaging. We really do need to get that right. That's very something.
Absolute priority.
Well, if you're a corporation, you'd have other people called ambassadors out there whose opinions some of these negative Nancy's would respect that are supporting.
We are getting there.
Good.
We are getting there.
Good. That's good.
Probably just through the chair, I've grabbed a couple of other councils in the area, and Coorong, with their growth of 0.5%, are looking at 9.02%. Corinda are looking at 7.8%. Southern Mallee are looking at 9.8% after a 9.2% last year as well.
See, that's all good material.
But Murray Bridge is 4.3. What is it? Looks to me 4.3 and the Cross 3.5.
Well, I think the other thing you can assist yourself with is the fact that look at the volume of properties that were substantially damaged during the recent flood event and the lack of support up until now in terms of what you've had to fund and what governments have funded. And I'd have to say, generally, I'm getting very good responses about the readiness and willingness of council to jump in and get things done. And that I know we very much appreciated by a lot of people.
Good team.
So through the chair, yeah, I think it's either 12.38 if we were to deal with all the catch-ups in 1 year, which is clearly not palatable. The 8.54 over 2 years, or the option B is the 7.29 in year one. Obviously they all have different scenarios, but I think that the pleasing thing for me is if we look at the 8.54, the option one, on page 173, I think it is, we're into surplus in 26, 27, which is, from where we were. There is a plan, which annoys me when people say there's no plan. There is a plan and we're working towards that. If we go down and maybe something that's more palatable being the 7.29, we're in surplus in 28, 29, which was part of the current plan for us to be. I will say that surplus in 27, 28 in that plan is only $60,000. So
Doesn't matter.
was the
It's
thing.
black,
It
not
doesn't
red.
matter. Yeah.
No, sorry, the year before.
the
So
other,
we
yeah.
could potentially be a year earlier in that.
Bonds,
Um,
50 grand of savings.
We would be a year earlier. So it's about the messaging. It's about the fact that we need to do these things to deliver what we've said we are going to deliver. And it's about the affordability for the community. So the elected members.
Oh, and maybe, the grants commission and the government.
We're putting a lot of pressure on.
Yeah.
Okay, open for general discussion, comments.
I think it's fantastic if you can pull this off. It's the rate increase level sounds, a lot, but you're in good company with a lot of other councils. Now's the time to do it, I reckon. And does tax.
So you can just clarify your point, if we can pull off the 8.54,
yeah.
given the financial benefits it is to the long term.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, a lot of other councils are increasing this year. Burnside 14%, you aware of. But then they go back down again. So
Let's say they're going to go back down.
yeah, well, that's right. My own council in Norwood is going up 8.5 as well. And they're also going into a huge debt. Their debt ratio is 166 next year. You're
They're
at
last ones to get
60%.
married.
So you're nowhere near broke. And with this plan, you can see the end of it now. Whereas before it's like going off into never, never. So if you can pull that off, I think this report, these reports are very, very good.
Outstanding.
And I commend staff for council for collaborating on this because it's a long way from where you've been in the past, I think.
And I think the key, Simone and I were talking before the meeting, looking at where the long-term financial plan was, what the long-term financial plan looked like in 2022 when we all came on board, what it looks like now, and what it's going to look like at the end of this period. If we can convey that message of the planning, in a simple way to the public, and I think that will help engagement and commitment by the public as well. But certainly elected members are extremely anxious about the blowback on this, but it is about the messaging. I agree.
Yeah. And often it's small volumes of blowback. It's not everybody. It's just some.
The other challenge we'll have is that given the the valuation changes, so a lot of those holiday home areas that had reduction in valuations last year are going to see that offset. For example, somewhere up north in Morford Flat, there's potentially 85% change in valuations because of the desktop analysis that Valuer General did last year to now what's happening. So, average rate increases are going to vary above and beyond that average throughout the district. And we've all seen average, I think, 20% valuation increases, Clive, on average across the district. Primary reductions 21%. Or no, maybe 13%.
Yeah, they were more around 15 to 17%.
Yeah.
So prime reduction. So then in reality, even with the 8.54%, they're increasing profit reduction by about 5%. So what you've done is that rollback of that redistribution is going back to the shaded areas and the flood areas, yeah.
And the rate of the dollar has actually decreased
Oh, yeah.
from 0.46 to 0.40, so it's going down even though the rate's going up.
And compare it with our neighbour, that's only having 4.5% increase. Ours are way below Murray Bridge. So there's another story with that. Their rate of dollars are high, you know, and there's other arguments about, you know, they've got facilities cost in other things like that.
Well, so did you say you had an updated table versus the one in the, was that because the update you already done?
That the update, yeah, with the just the percentage on the.
Yeah, so the one from the 0% in sustainability thing going out in 2023 as well. So that's a great result.
20,
Oh, so that's in version 5.
29.
So at the moment, our long-term financial plan, we have a 2% sustainability rate increase each year. In 29-30, that will stop if we go the 8.54.
Yeah.
And in the 7.29% option, it comes out in 2030-31, which then reduces the projected rates to around that 2%, 2.5%.
So yeah, if you have a higher increase now, we'll have that basically around CPI increases in the last 5 years. If you take the lower option and only 1 year of increase, then that CPI reversion back of rates only happens in the last 4 years.
What do you
But it's still
recommend?
visible in the future. That's, you know, it's seeable.
Yeah, I think as the audit committee, you know, you're probably looking at sustainability of council. You know, so then it's up to council to then probably look at the balance of the affordability more, where the audit committee is more based around sustainability, where I think the elected members may have more feel of the affordability and the rate
And
payers.
that's
You
my
make very good
concern.
politics.
Yeah.
Well, that's-
So my head says we should of course go with, you know, the
Yeah,
8.54,
politics
but
with-
my
With your-
heart and my
with your-
gut says I'm not sure that elected members are going to take that, but
Not
also
in a fallback position.
a stat that I was given the other day is that 50% of Australians are suffering with financial distress. 50%, 1 in 2 is pretty high, and in our area, I'm certain that it would be higher apart from all the shadow codes. So we do have to make a responsible decision, but also very
Sustainable
carefully,
decision.
yeah.
And the pathway is the same regardless which way we go. The pathway is clear. I agree with you that the plan is there, visible for all to
Yeah,
see,
and
whichever model we look at.
there's pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
So you see where,
Yeah.
yeah, like a higher increase will give you benefits over the longer term.
And the fact that none of the sustainability measures are in there yet, so that once we make those savings, then it changes again and makes it more affordable. So we are working for affordability.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wanted to support Peter's comments about coming back to surplus within 3 years rather than 5. There's a big push on, but I just wondered that 8.54% in the messaging, what sort of dollars does it represent to the average ratepayer per annum?
Through the chair, 132 per assessment.
I mean,
On
is that a
average.
useful message?
On average.
On average, is that a useful message? So you're looking at what, $2,
50 a week.
$2.50 a week, you know, yeah.
That's average.
In term, yeah,
residential.
in term,
yeah, not checkies.
yeah, I'm just trying to, whether that's a useful message or not, but I do support strongly going back to surplus sooner than later. I just wondered what the political will in the chamber is,
Hard to know.
It's
Is there any?
very divided.
because
very anxious.
I can tell you on my other councils, that's not good.
Yeah,
You know, they're just shirking away from that.
we'll put forward the audit committee position
Yeah.
on that and your thoughts.
Well, I'd like it. I mean, I strongly
Mm.
would favour the 8.54 over 2 years rather than the alternative, but
Through the chair, and I suppose that's what the administration's looking for from the audit committee. and in independence, you know, a strong position, whichever one it is, I'm not directing you where to go. And then it's up to the elected members to take that into consideration. You know, because the administration, our clear mandate is to drive sustainability. And we're presenting that. Obviously, we've got to balance that with affordability as well. So it'll be up to the mettle of the elected member group to make a decision in the best interests of both sustainability and affordability, which is a challenge.
Absolutely.
See,
But I
for that,
also
they
think,
got to get rid of, you've got to get rid of all the waste transfer stations.
Well, as part
We're
of-
doing both, as you know.
Well, we have to, $111,000 annually.
Yeah.
You might remind elected members too that there's a change in the structure of the audit committee, that you do have 3 independents.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't
Yeah.
think you've said it clearly, but I've had 2, so if you can say it too, then okay. All of the independent audit committee.
Well, the other question was, do you want me to attend the next council meeting with a view to reinforcing their spine?
Look, to
I don't know
Mayor
when-
Bailey, I
I
think
don't know when the council meeting is.
it's Tuesday week.
Actually, yeah.
Next week. I'm a down bella.
You can do it via Zoom. Look, it's up to Mayor Bailey, but I think if there is some way that we can facilitate that, to provide feedback from the independents, then that would be very helpful, to the elected members. I'll ask your opinion, would that be helpful?
yes, yeah, of course it would.
We'll work it
Time's
out.
council meeting, 10?
9:30.
Oh,
We
well,
were going to be in the bar, but.
No. Gin and tonics aren't on until midday.
Is it worth considering any options for softening the blow for some people with you know, some sort of,
What was the rate?
Rebate
20%
by-
capping.
yeah, that's very helpful. But I mean, where people are suffering, you know, real hardship.
We have a hardship policy, Peter.
We
through
talked
the
about
chair.
that at the meeting or two ago. In some detail.
Isn't that for delaying rates and that sort of thing?
Yeah,
As
interest,
opposed to, I mean, there's that, but I
Discount.
guess I'm thinking maybe even some short-term rebate for people who qualify for real hardship. And it's very difficult to manage, and generally speaking, you don't get very much in terms of application, but it provides a, you know, a blow softener, if you like, for some people that you care. You know.
We can do that. That's fine.
Just for, but yeah, because we don't have the council doesn't have the access to, you know, people's finances or their status of their current health card or their central link.
Yeah.
It's a little, at one stage when the money which was coming back through council by the state government as an offset by the state government on the rates, which now they get directly, a lot of councils would use that, and they would, match a certain amount of dollars to that as well, because it was obviously being authorised and gone through and deemed that these people did need support through that money, and council would actually just, put a percentage contribution in as well to represent that. It's very hard to analyse or make a determination from 2 different applications that you may receive. What indicators get someone across the line and which one doesn't.
That's why it's hard to differentiate pension, but self-funded retiree might be struggling under the same area.
Yeah.
But council is very where people come to us, they say they're under hardship. We do give them, once they approach us, and if we will look at waiving some of the penalties, not necessarily some of the interest, and then we may give them a interest and penalty period where they can catch up, as long as that's not too long.
Through the chair, just out of interest, Clive, the budget last year, we budgeted for significant, about $300,000 for rate capping.
Yeah.
And we reduced that to around.
About 10% of it, just over 10%.
Because people didn't apply.
Yeah.
However, value dropped, so, rates generally went to bad last year. It was a drop in papers, I remember.
Yeah, so it was, like we couldn't do any more than put the rebate form in each envelope for people to fill out. So whether they chose not to or didn't understand, and
It's very hard for people to
Yeah.
make applications these things.
At least the message we want to send is we're looking at everything, we're trying to make savings where we can, and you know, if you want to keep things, then your rates will probably go up.
And that's a challenge because it's a perfect storm at the moment, because
Yeah,
we're
it is.
doing this sustainability review, so we're looking at potentially reducing services or facilities or closing libraries and swimming pools and transfer stations or whatever the case. And then we're looking at potentially, you know, reasonably large increases in rates. And so there's multiple elements that we're hitting people with as well. So we need to manage that.
I think there are messages too about the buildings and land that review that we're doing as well, which is not a direct impact on the payer. You know, that we're reviewing everything. Is it being used? Is it costing us money? Is it actually paying its own way? Do we need it? Do we want it? Do we want to sell it? Those are other positive messages, things we're trying to do that don't impact on the ratepayer directly.
I'm sure you script it well.
The market segment that we may get is because of those valuation increases, David, is the holiday homeowners because of the reductions last year. So they may see some significant. I think the average increase in valuation on Morford Flat Road is $750,000 average. That's because and those people is second, it's not their primary place of residence, aren't able to apply for rate capping.
I think you find there's more and more going to have as their principal plus residents.
Yeah.
You don't need to avoid capital gains tax when they eventually sell.
And that'll be great, because then we'll get more funding.
Right, any other comments, observation?
Only a follow-on thought, I mean, maybe you could make it as simple as if someone's on a pension, then you can apply for it, just leave it at. I'm just thinking of trying to soften that.
I just worry about the equity there, because you do have a lot of other ratepayers in hardship, might be working parents with 3 kids,
Yeah.
and they're still in hardship, but they're not on pension, so.
Yeah.
I think we just-
Is it an order term, just if they're on a pension? Some.
Just a lot of work with finance then, trying to work out if they.
So no other questions, I move the report be received and move that the audit committee recommends plan be approved, be released for public consultation. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favour? I think you go with 8.54 and have the other one as a backstop. Sadly. Right, 7.4 annual business plan and budget. Get on.
Thank you, David. Through the chair, the proposed budget deficit is 785,000. It's the first time we've had one without millions in it for some time. It does align with the first year of the long-term financial plan. Small decrease in borrowings next year based on the CPI of 3.1%. It was predicted for June 2025 in the May and the February statement of monetary policy. The statement of monetary policy that was released whilst we were preparing the agenda had that CPI at 3.2, which would mean about $30,000 difference to the overall. So we didn't think it's worth changing it.
Right.
Community consultation is proposed from Wednesday, the 22nd of May to Wednesday, the 12th of June. Annual business plans attached and the rating policy is attached for review without any amendments from last year. So I recommend that to you all.
Thank you and well done. Comments, observation?
Kind of chapter 5, there's a Murray Pirrong trail in there, 189,000 expenditure, but apparently we've got a grant. We've taken it out of our strategic plan. It's just people did mention that trail the other night at Canberra when we had a lot of people, so about how to put that in there. That's a big up, I think.
But we've got funding for.
Yeah, so just make it
funding.
really, really clear, maybe in brackets already funded or something like
Okay.
that, just so it's nice and clear that, yeah, that's not.
We've reduced the co-contributions out of that in the long-term financial plan moving forward.
The other stuff I have, page 195, is the SCOSA summary. Again, a little bit about messaging, just to make sure that, yeah, these are the reasons why we're doing these things, because it's SCOSA's recommendation. This is what we're doing, just a little bit of messaging to that so that people understand. And yeah, help them feel comfortable, I guess. Page 219, there was something about medical facilities. I don't think we have 2 of them anymore, so I might just be rewording that. And page 279. So I'll go on to the next one now, don't worry about that one. Yeah, that's it.
Can you just send those through?
Okay, any other comments or observations?
Just through the chair, David, that we haven't included any of the rationalisation or sustainability measures that we're currently working in the budget until they've actually been realised. So that will potentially improve the position as well.
Good. Okay, on that basis, I recommend that the report be received and that the committee endorses the draft plan, recommends council that it be approved for release for public consultation. Secondly, thank you. Any further discussion? There being none?
Yes. Second.
Quick enough.
Okay.
I did stop.
Yeah.
Pause, friendly pause.
Reluctantly.
Yeah, just in terms of, where to go with this, the 8.5, whatever it was, percent was
8.54, yeah.
54 is averaged across all ratepayer groups.
So the rate in the dollar will stay the same ratio. That from reduction has a 10% basically discount versus all the other land uses. So
But you're achieving 8.54% increase in primary production revenue.
on the calculations they will get about a 5% increase.
Because the
Where
valuations are not going up
as much as the average, and last year, this current year we're in, it was the opposite. They were more than they were above the average valuation, so they got a increase above the average rate increase.
Because of the decrease in values of
Redistribution.
Yeah, I was just thinking if there's an opportunity to if you're going to lose some rate revenue by not having the 8.54, then adjusting it so you're not losing the whole amount of revenue. How much of the revenue is from residential?
As far as the Riverland corridor was probably about 25%, 30% is our rate revenue.
From residential.
just on that, no total rate revenue from residential, just property one,
It'd be close, like, because of the majority of our townships are there, even like, but that would be taking in property management as well, so if I get
You're not asking about river corridor though, are you?
No,
You're just
I'm
looking at total residential.
residents versus primary production and commercial.
Yeah, there's a,
just get a.
I think there's about 6,000, isn't there, properties that are residential.
Whilst you're looking at that, is there anything else before we vote on all those?
Just one other comment, sorry, Dave, and I know we've said this prior, but I think it's relevant after the long-term financial plan and the budget, the amount of work that has gone into this by John and Clive in particular, all-nighters to get this delivered across the period of time. I just want to acknowledge both John and Clive and the rest of the finance team.
We had Ben who checks those reports at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Nothing else better to do.
We have pretty awesome.
We certainly do.
I noticed the effort.
Yeah.
Time I do emails and things, so.
And the reviews that Clive did on the weekend, just because he didn't want to do anything else and found.
I enjoyed bedtime.
Okay, so we've got the recommendation we put, got a seconder. I think we've had enough discussion. All those in favour? Thank you. John, Deb,
The debt management policy, we've just made a few changes so that enable the debtors to better understand what our expectations of them are. And that is that they pay up. Basically. Pay up or risk the consequences.
Any discussion, observations, comment? Pretty straightforward.
I just had a question.
Yep.
The debt write-offs, and the delegation, I'm presuming that's open-ended with dollar amount. There's no dollar amount ceiling on it.
Delegation, my delegation, personal delegation is $5,000.
So that would be the debt write-off.
Yep.
Limit as well.
Does that apply to rates? You have to go to council. Rates.
They've ever written off any rates,
No.
but I'd have to have a look at what part of the delegation that, because I think it just talks about the right of bad debts. I'm not sure whether it generalises or not. Those two separate parts. I think. I don't think delegation stipulates
Stipulated on those.
Yeah. I'd let you know.
Any other questions or observations? I recommend the report be received and the audit committee endorses the policy. I recommend council would it be adopted. All those in favour, thank you. Right. Strategic plan.
So through the chair, the current plan has been undertaken over the last 12 months. It's based on our current plan. We've refined it based on our current operating environment and the changes over the last 4 years and current and future trends. The review has been driven internally by myself and the SMT, senior management team, with working groups across the organisation to get staff buy-in. We haven't engaged an external consultant, one to save money, and we also think we get a better result internally. So that saved in excess of $50,000 by doing that, but has obviously increased the workload as well. We've undertaken extensive community consultation, and David had the pleasure of coming to one of those sessions.
And listen to the feedback, which was very positive.
Thank you. Yeah, and we went above and beyond. We went for 6 weeks rather than mandatory 21 days. We did, as it said in the report, I think 6 community information sessions, multiple surveys and face-to-face targeted consultation as well. Key feedback from that consultation was there was too much detail and repetition in the draft. There was concern about our ability to deliver. We should focus on core services, include less to achieve more, too ambitious in the terms of scope, remove some operational activities and keep it strategic, and consolidate and rationalise. So after that, we worked through internally, including engaging with the elected members on a number of workshops to further refine the plan, consolidate some of the themes. So we've gone from 5 themes to 3. Remove the people section because that is seen as how we're going to deliver the plan, and that's more of an internal thing. And we've stripped back business as usual activities out of the plan unless it's a strategic element. For example, waste is in there around recycling and the Canberra landfill, but not just delivering waste services. So if there's a strategic element to a core service, then we've included that in the plan. But other than that, we've taken all that out. So next steps is to provide an opportunity for the committee to provide any feedback. Then we'll send it to council for their endorsement at the next committee meeting. So that's a snapshot. If there's any, and I will say the plan that's in there is just a working document, so it will get pretty and be graphic designed and including some preamble and some wording around that. So don't be offended by the spreadsheets or the format of it. Yeah, if there's any feedback.
It's interesting that you've actually found the outer boundary now of doing strategic planning. Previously, you might have been criticised for not enough public consultation. Now you've been criticised for too much and too detailed. One of these days you'll find the sweet spot.
Sweet spot.
You promise?
Maybe not an hour and a half time, but you will. Right, any other observations or questions or comments?
No, I just want to highlight amazing team again because it wasn't easy and there were a lot of nights and everyone has listened, and I think the community is starting to see that and they're impressed. So thank you.
Yeah, it's very good, and it sounds like the community has engaged a bit in it.
Yeah, I suspect the flood exercise to some extent has helped in
Yeah,
that, and there's
yeah.
been a high regard for, what council can and did do during that period of time.
Yeah, so,
The flood hasn't
Is it
all
Melbourne?
been bad.
yeah, no.
All right, I recommend the report be received. Seconded, thank you tonight. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favour? Thank you. Right, submission.
I think that's me as well. So I won't go through it, but select committee of whatever the panel is called is undertaking some consultation and review of local government sustainability. There's a terms of reference in the report that outlines what they're considering. I've drafted up a document and I've provided that to the elected members for some feedback, which I'll incorporate. I haven't done that yet, Mandy. This is the same document that went to elected members. And if there's any feedback or anything you think I've missed or advice, I'll take that into consideration, finalise it for the council to consider and provide to the select committee by the 31st of May. Clearly, sustainability is a big issue for us. And yeah, we want to make sure that we're having our say. Whether it changes anything, I'm not sure, but the financial assistance grants is the biggest issue. The underfunding amount and the delivery model of that, given there's 30% has to be distributed equally, and there's some councils that don't need that 30% allocation, whereas there's others that absolutely. And the percentage increase, the percentage of allocations and their ability to generate revenue from that is they've got much more ability to do that.
The chart that's highlighted, that's that coloured one. It shows what other councils should be getting and what they are getting.
And you've got some letters from individuals, haven't you, to support installation?
Yeah, we have.
Do we?
The ones that I've sent through, I'm not sure if they're quite fitting for that. Maybe if you comment that.
Yeah.
So that is it, unless there's some feedback and
Feedback, questions, observations?
Yeah, I mean, the financial assistance part, I think you're right in focusing on, because it's something that could be addressed reasonably simply, I would have thought.
if there's some appetite for it.
Yes, there's an appetite for it. I mean, they're asking for something. Yes, I tell them. Yeah, it has gradually been pulled away since Whitman's time, and that's it just makes life that much harder for all councillors by not having it. Plus the distribution methodology is more
Mainly
complicated.
regions, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So I think it's good report, and this needs to be finished off. I can't think of anything else that could radically change things.
Any other questions or comments?
Were there any significant issues from the elected members that?
No, they were generally supportive, just some supportive recommendations or some changing of how it's structured. I think.
I thought it was a really good submission.
So we were able to contribute what topics we wanted to see in there as well. So yeah.
So yeah, I workshop with them first, and so that list is in the report of the items that I covered. I didn't put anything about housing in there because I didn't think it fit necessarily. So that captured there, and then there was just some broad general comments post the draft.
Thank you. All right, I recommend the report be received. Do I have a second? Thank you, Peter. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favour? Thank you. Welcome, Dallas.
Hello, how are you?
Fit and well, thank you.
Excellent.
Of course. Well, give us edited highlights.
Okay, it's a real page turner. So we're just requesting an amendment to the terms of reference for the Audit and Risk Committee. So this is relevant to updating with reference to the legislative changes from the reform, and they are really just focused upon internal audit, so including the sections relating to 125A of the Local Government Act, as well as reporting. and then also external audit. So whilst the legislation obviously dictates exactly what the Audit and Risk Committee is required to do, it was thought that it was important that the Audit and Risk Committee terms of reference also reflected those. So it was really clear exactly what the framework in which the committee was to work. So that they are the only changes. Essentially, it is the same terms of reference with just a little bit more information from the Act.
Right, thank you. Questions, comments, observations? Pretty finely, but
Just a question about the, generally speaking, it's seen as good practice for the presiding member to be one of the independent members, and that's not in the terms of reference. It's not in the Act either, I don't think, but
No.
I just wondered whether that is something that the council might want to consider having in the terms of reference, as it certainly does.
well, if that's the
most councils.
take that on board and come back to it.
I can certainly include that as, would you like that as a recommendation or just something that for the council to consider?
Well, recommend that the council consider it, but I personally think, and generally speaking, almost all audit committees that I serve on are presided over by an independent chair. And it gives that sense of separation.
Okay.
I think it'd be good to have it in the policy, even if it's just it is recommended, so then at least that the policy to follow.
I think through the chair, what I'm hearing is maybe we adjust the motion to say that the committee recommends that the presiding member is an independent.
Yep, that's what I'm seeking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, so that the terms of reference be amended. It is recommended that the terms of reference be amended to include that the presiding member be an independent member of the committee.
Yep. Yeah. Good, yeah, Peter. Anything else?
That's
All right.
happy to recommend that.
Okay. So, subject to that amendment, I recommend that the report be received, the amendments, including the one Peter's referred to, be recommended to council for endorsement, and recommended that the CEO be authorised to make the minor amendments to the terms of reference to the Audit and Risk Committee. Seconded, thank you. Any further discussion there being done? All those in favour? Thank you.
Thanks,
Right.
Dallas.
Bye, thank you.
Welcome, Glenn. Do you want to talk to us about the council's revaluation schedule, annual review?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, just the agenda, I've got a revaluation schedule over 10 years. There's 12 asset classes, from transport being sealed and unsealed, stormwater, plant machinery and fleet, CWMS, urban channel footpaths, buildings, land structures, bridges and major culverts, open space, river facilities, Bowhill water and TV utilities and heritage boats. Quite a number to go through. Probably on average doing 3 asset classes per financial year over the next 10 years. Currently doing the river facilities valuation because it hasn't been captured before, not a reval, and a condition assessment, working with Mager and Associates at present. And the CWMS, which is the asset plans 2018, that's been completed and currently for sign off. I'm hoping within the next week that's completed and the details provided to the auditors, then reviewing the asset management plan CWMS. And for next financial year, looking at stormwater's due, buildings, land and structures. Open space has been included with buildings, land and structures. We're looking at separating that for ease of management and understanding what assets we do have in the reserves and parks. So hence, open space will create a new asset management plan for next financial year. So two be completed this year in the revaluations is the CWMS and the river facilities. Any questions?
Questions, comments, observations?
Plan.
All right, I recommend the report be received. Thank you, Simone, for seconding. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favour? Thank you. Well done. Thanks for coming with it. Right, sustainability report.
Yep, just through the chair, each year we give a, update of the sustainability measures, of council.
Thank you.
This, report is, sorry, the attachment to that, there's some report which is really overviewing, in 4 parts, the internal savings, $470,000 and, savings for efficiencies and or, increased revenue. Then the second part with the budgeting measures of March 2024, there was obviously a reduction taking into account some of the items which were carried forward, timing. The net reduction over 2 financial years was $1.1 million. And then also in preparation of the 2024-25 budget, we looked at, even though there was several rounds of that, I took it myself to take another razor cut to it, and trim out nearly $500,000 of funds, either that I didn't think were required, and looking historically whether they weren't, they would have been budgeted but not actually being expected. So they're probably overestimates as far as budgets are concerned. And the last part, number 4, is just an overview of the sustainability reports, which have gone to council to give the audit committee a overview of what activities we've been busy, and to the point that now council has a sustainability section in the agenda.
Good. Questions, comments?
Great work. I love it. We won't get as many favourable budget changes down the track, but at least it looks good to start.
For me, through you, Dave, it just demonstrates that it's not just external cost efficiencies or savings that are being undertaken, they're internal as well. We get criticised that we're not doing that, and so we wanted to demonstrate that that is the case. The senior management team has operating efficiencies and productivity as a standard agenda item, which we have discussions about ways we can do things smarter. And for example, Clive is looking at a payroll system that will create efficiencies, and we do that across the business as much as we can internally. So,
and even to the point that in the departments, there's they have the sustainability now monthly.
Yeah,
To try and get a
look at the long-term financial plan in front of you.
we've got to message that though,
Yeah.
because clearly internalities that are not getting out.
You need to message it internally and externally.
Yeah, I was going to say, like a cheat sheet for elected members first.
All right, I recommend the report be received. Seconded, thank you. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favour? In my haste, I forgot to mention under the terms of reference that I noticed that a quorum is by formula divide the number by 2 and add 1. If there are 5 members and you divide it by 2, you get 2.5. If you add 1, you get 3.5. I'm not sure we're going to find the other half person. So one of the things I talked to Clive and John about in the period before the start of the meeting was maybe it ought to be 3 people, at least one of which comes from both camps.
Yeah.
So they've taken that on. I just wanted to mention it because I should have mentioned it when Dallas was present. Right, awareness of council reports.
Yeah, through the chair, I just take it as read, please. And questions?
Questions? It's very handy to have because previously, a year ago, you'd hear about things you didn't have to know about, but now we do, so that's it. So I move the council reports and be received. Thank you, Peter, for seconding it. Any further discussion? If not, favour? Lovely for that. You can't. Yeah.
Through the chair, just attach the examples of the standard monthly reports that go to each council meeting, and we're prepared to take any suggestions on board.
Any comments, observations, suggestions? Yep. All right, I recommend the report be received. Thank you for seconding it. Any further discussion? I'm trying to be fair and share the load.
Tracy just has to guess.
That's all right, we get to amend
rolling
these
dice.
minutes again.
Exactly.
All those in favour? Thank you. Heather, your time to shine if you're on, if you're there somewhere. Oh, she is too, that's good.
Hello, how are you?
Getting to the end of our tether, so don't take long.
I won't. Yeah, so through the chair, just an update of what we're doing in the risk space across council. So with the strategic plan being finalised, we'll update our risk register in that. And the risk working group has been working on operational risks and making those aligned to all our other business plans and other activities that we're doing, instead of it being a standalone with different naming conventions. We're just pulling it all in line. So that's what we're doing at the moment.
Thank you. Questions? The report be received. Who wants to go? So I don't have hand up first. Any further discussion there being none? All those in favour? Thank you, Heather. And thank you for consenting to do the graveyard shift. Very, very important. Right, audit and committee work program review. John.
Okay, thank you, David. Through the chair. We completed the one outstanding task from February. We added 3 new reports that weren't in our works program, but we believe they were relevant to audit and risk. And we deferred the draft asset management plans to the August meeting due to just workloads of.
And budget time and financial statement preparation time and strategic update time, and risk register update time and everything else.
That those valuations which have been then those assessment events will follow up those.
Any questions, comments or observations? I move the report be received. Thank you, Peter, for.
I wanted to move it.
Well, you're not quick enough, Peter. You've got your chance.
Randy,
All
will be
those in favour?
faster.
Any further question there being none? All those in favour? Thank you. Other businesses going around the table. Peter? Mayor, councillor, CEO.
No. Apparently, Mandy does have other business.
Oh, right.
Someone's telling
I
us
was just
that.
thinking, in the briefing, we said we'd bring something to audit committee.
Well, you got 1 minute, otherwise it'll get closed.
It's 3 months. No, I don't. Thank you, David.
I think.
We'll have to bring it next time.
Yeah.
Next meeting is here on the 8th of the 8th. Meeting is officially closed unless you quickly can think of what it was. If you can't, at 3:43 p.m. Thank you. Good afternoon and well done to the leadership of this council, both from a mayor and CEO perspective, but most importantly from the team in well done, Doug.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure to chair these meetings, knowing that the quality of the information is so good.